Let's get ready to rumble.
Yes, we're back. Here we go. Episode 89 of the Hibs Ramble. And it's myself hosting yet again this evening, Shaun. And I'm joined by quite possibly the greatest Hibs dad there ever was and ever will be, Liam McClellan. How you doing?
Good evening. I'm not too bad, mate. A lovely intro there. Not been on for a couple of weeks, so it's nice to make an appearance again.
Many happy returns to you and 3/4 of your family. Hope everyone is doing well.
Yeah. So it was my birthday last week. It's my wee boy's birthday today, and then a couple of weeks ago it was my wee girl's birthday. So all systems go in our in our household, which is it's been a bit of a stressful 4 weeks or so. But listen, these are the games that you train all season for. Obviously you're looking forward to these ones, and these are the ones that matter.
Speaking of those that matter, the club came out with an announcement and mentioned about, finally, can you put the news to bed? Everyone kind of knew that it was going to happen. Maybe not so much Paul, but definitely Lewis. But the club announced that both of them will be leaving the club at the end of the season. So huge news coming out of the club. Two absolutely fantastic servants. We definitely wish them all the best. Just going to run through a couple of things actually about them, Liam, and then get your thoughts kind of on them as well. So Paul Hanlon, 5'9", 5'6", depending on where you find your data. Appearances for the club, 27, 28 goals again, depending on where you find your data. One Scotland cap, which came in a 1-0 win against Czech Republic back in October 2020. Now, he made his debut in January 2008. Liam, what were you doing in January 2008, and how old were you?
I would have been 10, and I would have been there. I think, was it not against Inverness or something?
It was, yeah, and ironically, it was against Inverness, and ironically, he got his debut because Lewis Stevenson was injured at the time.
Yeah, he played at left back, didn't he?
Yeah. Speaking of Lewis Stevenson, sitting pretty on 599 appearances, 10 goals, 12 if you include friendlies, which I'm assuming he certainly will.
When you score that
Scotland,
few goals, you've got to include friendlies, I think.
One Scotland cap against Peru, which came in May 2018. Funny story with that for those of the people that don't know. He was meant to be going on holiday, family holiday. I'm sure it was to Disneyland. I remember him saying, and he got the call for Alex McLeish, and his wife assumed that he had turned it down and said no, and they had that awkward look between each other, being like she was like, all right, okay, so how did it go? Like, how did you go telling him no? And he was like looking at her like, shit, I need to tell her that I'm paying this holiday and I'm joining up later on because I'm going to this game. So somehow he managed to agree to attend a Scotland game and get the okay for Alex McLeish to not stay there for the whole camp and just go for that one game, bagged himself a cap, and then buggered off.
You wait your whole career for a call up to the national team, and then you fuck off after the first game. Incredible.
Speaking of debuts as well, his came against Ayr in 2005, September 2005. Liam, I'm going to ask you the same question. Where the devil were you in September 2005?
I can tell you where I was in it, and that was at Ayr, watching Lewis Stevenson's debut. But I find it mad that he made his debut in 2005 and Paul Hanlon didn't make his debut until 2008. It's mental that there was that long between them. But what was I doing? 2005 September. I would have been. How old would I have been? Help me out here, Shaun. I don't know. I was born in 97, May 97. So I would have been.
Okay, so that's 5.
I wouldn't have been 5.
97,
I would have been 7.
5. Oh, 7. Sorry. Aye.
Yeah, I'm getting. Megan's sitting on the couch there opposite me, and she's holding up 7 fingers, and she's going, "You're fucking 7." I'm going, "Oh, what was that?" Well, thanks, Megan. I appreciate that.
I think I was at both their debuts, if I'm honest.
Well, you're a dinosaur, Sean, so I wouldn't be surprised.
2005.
Definitely
that was
I was definitely at Paul Hanlon's debut, but I wasn't at Lewis Stevenson's. I think the first time I went to Ayr away was the game that we got beat in the cup. I think.
I
I
would
can't
have been
remember.
I would have been 12 and 15 when their debuts were. And that was around the time when I used to go to like the cup games or the games against lower league sides and stuff as well. So I was definitely at Paul's, fairly certain I was at Lewis's as well. Both have obviously went on to lift the Scottish Cup. Both have lifted the Scottish Championship. Lewis obviously having the League Cup there as well. Paul Hanlon, 2-time Player of the Year. Lewis Stevenson, 1-time Player of the Year. Paul Hanlon, this is 5th in the all-time appearance makers for Hibernian. Lewis just above him in 4th. And Lewis has the all-time league record holder as well. So some achievement for the two of them. More than likely never see the likes to that again, Liam.
Yeah, probably at, at a lot of clubs as well. Your one club men. I know technically Paul Hanlon isn't because he went out on loan for like 2 games or something to St Johnstone, but your one club men just aren't a thing anymore. Your Gerrards, your Carragers, players like that, you just don't seem to get them very often. And I think when they come around, they're special. From the reaction that we've seen on Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that, given the announcement, a lot of people are absolutely gutted. Despite the fact that Lewis Stevenson's not really featured an awful lot for the first team in the last couple of years. Paul maybe is featured a little bit more. You'd maybe think that Paul's got a wee bit more left to give, but it's a sad time when players like that move on, especially when they're fan favourites and they're proper Hibs men, and I don't think it'll happen again. Not in my lifetime, anyway.
No, you certainly, in my opinion, anyway, you need people like that in a club like Hibs. I can understand like at bigger clubs like down south and stuff like that, where fans can maybe lose it. Like if you're talking about the Premier League and the amount of money that comes through that type of league, but when you're talking about the Scottish game and Scottish football, you need people that, whether they're academy boys or whether they join the club and have supported the club, they come through and they go through. I mean, I'm going to ask you how many managers you think they've went through in a second, but the amount of managers that they've went through, the changes that the club have went through in the time as well. You need people like that. So when your Marcondes come in, your Malouda come in, even like the likes of even like a Harry McCurdy or a Chris Mueller, to quote your 2 favourite players that ever wore the green shirt, you need people like Paul and Lewis in there to get these players from other areas of the world to understand just how important it is to pull on that shirt and understand what certain games mean, and how going away to St Johnstone is tough, but then how you need to get yourself up for Hearts away and things like that as well. So it's just a shame that both of them are leaving at the same time. I do certainly think Paul could have given us another year, but I think the club are now just trying to cut ties in the nicest way possible of putting it like that. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and speculate where they're going to go, but it wouldn't surprise me if Lewis Stevenson ends up at Wraith and Paul Hanlon ends up at another Premier League club or goes somewhere abroad. So I've already touched on it, Liam. Numbering prem managers that they had, permanent managers that Lewis Stevenson has had. Do you want to hazard a guess?
I could sit here and probably figure it out, but I want to say that Lewis Stevenson has had since 2005. 11.
Paul's on 12. I'll give you that. Lewis is on 14.
That's not so bad.
14.
I thought
How
maybe
many
it would
of
be like
those-
13, 14, but I was like, surely not. I mean, maybe by the
How
summer
many of
it'll be
those
15.
14 do you think you could? How many of those 14 do you think you could name?
I think I could name all of them.
Go on them.
Right, I'll work backwards.
Okay.
So Montgomery, Johnson, Maloney, Ross, Hecky. Who's before Hecky? Neil Lennon, Alan Stubbs, Terry Butcher, Pat Fenlon, Colin Calderwood, John Hughes, Mixu, Tony Mowbray, John Collins.
Yep, that's it.
Is that
You got Mowbray and Collins the wrong way round, but
Is that it?
Yeah, you've done well. Done well.
I thought it would maybe mix up a wee bit when I got to Mixu and Yogi and Collins and Mowbray and all that, but
right strategy working your way back. You've done well.
yeah.
Don't think I've ever been prouder than you.
Oh, geez, mate.
Obviously, both players have had big moments in Hibs shirts. Scored, in Paul's case, big goals or a big goal, which goes without saying. And we'll probably definitely mention it with what we're about to come on and what I'm going to ask you in a second. Lewis has obviously got a couple of big goals. I loved a goal against Rangers, for example. Obviously, he scored about half the amount that Paul did. But what springs to mind? And I've asked you for a favourite goal and a favourite moment for both of them, but what springs to mind first when you think of Lewis Stevenson and Paul Hanlon?
Well, we had a discussion before we started recording that I think I'm remembering a goal that Paul Hanlon scored that I don't think he scored. And now I can't remember when this match actually happened, but it was a night game and it was 1-1 against St Mirren at the time. Oh no, I tell you why. It wasn't Paul Hanlon that scored that, because I think it was a Jack Ross own goal. But I think Paul Hanlon got like the main touch on it, and Jack, that's why it's not there. Just figured that out. No, so I had another one in mind, don't worry, Sean. The other one, obviously the 2-2 one is, you know, the one that most people are going to go for and remember him by, but the the other one for me is when we beat Dunfermline 4-0 at Easter Road, and that, I think it was 11-12 season when we had the slope on the strip, and we were nearly going down, and it was like a must win really, to kind of propel us to safety, and we battered them first half, and I think it was towards the end that Paul Hanlon, I think he hit it for the edge of the box. It smacks the underside of the bar, bounces about 5 yards, like not over the line, but the other way, like back into the box, and bounces away. And the referee gives it. Everyone at the time, I think, just started pissing themselves laughing because it was ridiculous, and I cannot believe that it was ever given. I mean, I think everyone in the stadium, apart from the lino and the ref,
fourth and final goal. Fourth and final goal of that game it was as well.
Yeah.
Is that your favourite Paul Hanlon moment as well then, or is that just your favourite Paul Hanlon goal?
I don't. My favourite Paul Hanlon moment, I think, in terms of Paul, he definitely goes under the radar as someone who did a lot of important work. I'd kick myself if I didn't talk about his diagonal balls that he loves to do. Mark loves them. I love them. So I think maybe my favourite Paul Hanlon moment is every time he does a diag, and it comes off, because I get so proud of him. I love it when he does that. But my favourite Paul Hanlon goal, apart from that one at Tynecastle, I think, he scored a couple against Rangers as well, didn't he? No, I'm going to go with that Dunfermline one, because it's the one that I've thought back to instantly.
My my favourite Paul Hanlon goal would be the one at Hampden against Celtic, where we then proceeded to just not defend for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, that was a bit annoying, wasn't it?
Yeah, going into that game and then obviously taking the lead when we weren't expecting anything from it, you then obviously get your hopes up, only to then be shattered seconds later. And it's just one of those Hibs what if moments. If we could just maybe hold on a wee bit longer and weather the storm, could have something have happened.
Maybe David Gray still would have had the job by now. Who knows?
Imagine. And the reason why I didn't pick the Hearts goal is I wasn't at the game, and I'm going to completely then contradict myself with why I've chosen the Lewis Stevenson goal. But I was meant to be at the 2-2 game. I was down in Newcastle for the weekend, and I was coming up from Newcastle, and I got offered a ticket, but then the train got delayed or something or whatever, and I couldn't make it from Waverley to Tyney in time, so I ended up just going home, missed the first half and caught the second half. So that's probably why I wouldn't pick that goal. But my favourite moment would actually be Paul Hanlon's penalty against Dundee United in the
yeah.
semi-final, because I remember Conrad Logan had stepped up and saved 2 already. John McGinn had scored, and Paul Hanlon's up next, and I'm like, fucking hell, oh my God, what's he doing? What's he coming up centre half in that? And then cool as you like, slotted it in the corner. Couple years down the line, he then takes a penalty against Inverness, and I'm
I
like,
was
oh,
literally about to
remember
say
that
this.
one against Dundee United? This is going to be a brilliant penalty. And then obviously he misses it. And when he missed that one, you're thinking, why on earth is he taking that? You've got Martin Boyle on the pitch.
No, but did you remember that was the time where we went through like a patch of everyone
Aye,
taking
all missing
penalties and
penalties.
everyone missed.
Aye. But still, like, if you've got Martin Boyle, Mark McNulty, Greg Docherty, Scott Allen, Christian Doidge on the pitch, how are you making your way all the way down to
there
Paul
was
Hanlon?
some sort of like on Hibs.net there was some sort of like no like a petition, but everyone was going, yeah, Hanlon should be the penalty taker, because we were getting penalties almost every week and we were missing them all the fucking time.
I know.
So I think we'd kind of went through everyone who'd taken a penalty, and then Paul Hanlon was maybe last on the list. And I'm thinking, oh, this is our saving grace here, big Paul getting among the penalties, but no, not to be. I don't think he's taken a penalty since.
No, I don't think he has, and rightly so, considering how poor that one was. What's your favourite Lewis Stevenson goal and favourite Lewis Stevenson moment?
And this is again, it would be easy to say that goal against Rangers at Ibrox. I was there that night. That was incredible. I think that's the only time I've seen us win there, which is a bit depressing. But either that one, he scored. I don't know if it was the same season or the following season again against Rangers. It was at home. I think we got beat that day, but he scored to put us.
Shot deflected.
Yeah, he scored to put us 1-0 up. But the other one that sticks out in my mind, actually no, another two. The one against Kilmarnock in the season we got relegated, because I think he hadn't scored for years, and then he pulled that one out the bag and it was a zinger. Either that one or the one against Runovic away.
That was a
which
zinger.
was a zinger
that
as
one.
well.
Aye.
So,
I went for the Rangers one, but that's one of the few victories at Ibrox that I've seen that I wasn't there for. Instead, I was at Murray Park that evening, watching it after coaching, and that Lewis Stevenson goal won me £1,000. So
really?
I'll definitely be very, very grateful to Lewis
What did
for
you
that.
spend it on?
It went towards a house deposit for the house that I then moved into like a couple months later. So
Class.
some would say if it wasn't for Lewis Stevenson, I wouldn't have got my first house. My favourite moment with Lewis, and it happened quite a lot, but it was really good when it happened, when he would just get overwhelmed with anger and go through like a Rangers player or a Hearts player. There's so many, or a Celtic player. I was scrolling about online earlier when I was like, I was trying to find there was a specific tackle I was trying to find a video of, but I couldn't find it. Instead, it was just crunching tackle after crunching tackle, and all the photos that were coming up were against Hearts. And then there's a few against Rangers, and then a couple against Scott Brown as well. I was like, what's going on? So those would be my favourite moments.
Favorite moment for me, I used to really like it when he would kind of find a burst of pace from somewhere like 70, 80 minutes and get up that line, and you're thinking, where on earth has that come from? Like, he doesn't possess that sort of, he doesn't have the facilities for that. But no, he was. I always said to my dad, that boy, he runs on passion. He doesn't run on energy and food like the rest of us. He runs on his love for Hibs. But no, he was. That was always a memorable moment for me. Just seeing Lewis Stevenson giving him 110% every single time he crossed that white line when he had a green shirt on, and I think he realised that he was living everyone's dream every week.
He speaks very, very well every time every time I've spoken to him anyway, that's for sure. Just before we move on to what the crux of this episode was going to be, before that announcement was made. I'm going to test your Hibernian Football Manager, as in not the game that you were showing me before we came on, but actual Hibernian Manager's knowledge.
Also, if we are looking for a new manager, I am just about. I'm on the brink of winning the league with Hibs. I've won the Scottish Cup and the League Cup. So, Mr. Kensel, Mr. Foley, if you're looking for a new gaffer, get in touch. I'll send you my CV.
But for context, you went 3 years without winning a trophy, and I think you're 6 years deep now, and I don't think Hibs fans have that amount of patience, Liam.
No, well, I've never finished any lower than 4th. And I've finished 2nd twice. And we got to the quarterfinals of the UEFA Cup. I think the Hibs fans would be fine with me.
Speaking of Hibs fans that managers were fine with, you managed to go back all 14 Hibs managers.
Impressive.
I think it would be very impressive. Now, I'll be even more impressed if you can get these 2 questions right. I want to know if Alan Stubbs has the best win percentage that Lewis and Paul have played under with 58%. Who has the second best win percentage?
58 for Alan Stubbs.
58 is Alan Stubbs, yeah.
What's the next percentage? What is the percentage?
There was 2 managers on 48%. One of them was on the brink of 49.
Right. So if I get either of them, have I won the game?
Based on Wikipedia. Well, you would need to get the one that was second, not the one that was third.
I think that the 2 managers that have got 48% are Jack Ross and Neil Lennon, but I might be wrong.
So my follow-up question to that would be, who's second and who's third?
It's a difficult one. Neil Lennon drew a lot of games in Championship, didn't he? I'll go Jack Ross.
So you've provided me with the right answer for the question that I actually asked you, but you got Neil Lennon wrong because it was Tony Mowbray. So the other end of that scale, if Terry Butcher was the worst manager with the worst win percentage of 20%,
fucking hell,
who was second? With 24%, who was second?
24%. Can he manage many games?
And I'll give you a clue. It's yeah, you're right. That is Calderwood. I was going to give you a clue and say it's not Sean Maloney.
Oh, I forgot about him. He was
Sean
that
Maloney's
bad.
at Sean Maloney was at like 35%. Speaking of managers that have a win percentage of about 35%, that could be an absolute lie. I've absolutely no idea. I'm not even going to fact check it. Nick Montgomery is bringing to a close his first season, not first full season, in charge of Hibernian Football Club. Now, what we are going to do this evening is we're going to have not an in-depth season review, but we're going to have like a quick review of the season. I've highlighted 5 pivotal games that I felt shaped our season, rightly or wrongly, and we're going to go through them while talking about the season. I've got a couple of questions for Liam, his thoughts on where we were as a fan base and as a club at that time, which has maybe probably shaped the outlook of the support at the moment for Nick Montgomery, and maybe not just Nick Montgomery, but the actual club as a whole. Liam, I'm going to take you right back to the 10th of August when we played Luzerne at home, 4-4-2, 3-1, under Lennon there, under Lee Johnson. We came into that game and we pretty much on paper had a really, really good transfer window. LAU had signed permanently. We paid 700 grand for Dylan Vente. Dylan Levitt on paper, really, really good signing. Adam Lafondra, Obita, Wallacott. It looked like we had addressed all of our issues. Do you think, now there's been a lot of talk on this podcast and online, that we obviously should have pulled the trigger at the end of the season, and potentially Lee Johnson finishing in the top 6 last season papered over the cracks, and that's probably what gave him more time. Do you think that a mixture of that, as in finishing the top 6 and finishing relatively strong, getting a European spot, from then until the Luzerne games, do you think those level of performances at that point papered over the cracks? And although we'd signed well on paper, do you think I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but do you think now looking back, we probably should have done more at that transfer window to give us a stronger squad at that point?
In terms of transfer window, I don't think so. I think you can look back on it and say, well, Dylan Levitt is a good player. It's a good signing. Dylan Venney is a good player. That's a good signing. Abita has been a fantastic signing. I mean, looking back on it, maybe Wallacott and Harbottle have been the only players that came in that window that really haven't been good enough for Hibs. I mean, the rest of them are certainly good enough. It's they've not particularly shown it so much this season, but we know from experience how good Dylan Levitt is. We've seen flashes of Dylan Venney across the season, especially in that Luzerne game. I thought he was excellent in that Luzerne game, but like you said, hindsight is a wonderful thing, and maybe we should have brought in another centre half or another one of these, but no one was saying that. When the window shut, everyone was going, "This has been a fantastic window," and I still think when you look back on it, it probably is a good window, because where we were at the end of the season, we'd obviously lost Nisbet. We never had Porteous anymore, so I mean, we maybe probably should have brought in a centre half, but no, listen, it's so difficult. I don't think we could have done an awful lot more. I genuinely
Lee Johnson.
Do you think though that after that window shuts that we should have brought in more or different positions?
No, I don't think Lee Johnson should have been in the job at that point, and I think that is where we now find ourselves with Nick Montgomery, where Lee Johnson had lost the squad, and the dressing room didn't seem, although apart from the European games, because we had that terrible result away in Andorra as well, under Lee Johnson, and then that feels like a very, very long time ago. And then fast forward to last weekend, and we've got the same incident where there being an argument between the fans and the players and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
So it's been a very, very long season, but no, I think the window is very strong, and I still think it's deemed as a relative success. My issue is
you've got
players...
to say that though, because the players that we brought in, yeah, you can say what you want about Dylan Venney and Dylan Levitt. I mean, they were probably the marquee signings, and they haven't set the heather alight by any stretch of the imagination. But they're definitely not players that you can then just go and write off and say that they're shite, because we know that Dylan Levitt's not shite, and the goal record that Dylan Venney put up at the start of the season, and when he was in Holland, clearly shows that he's not a bad player.
No. And that's where my issue lies, because
it gets more frustration more than anything, surely.
The performances that we were getting out of those two individuals, Vente in particular, when Lee Johnson was in charge, are vastly different to the level of performances that we're now getting under Monty. And it comes under the personnel that we now find ourselves with, versus what Monty is probably wanting, and that's probably where we're going to find ourselves in a sticky situation, where the club are now maybe going to decide, are we going to pull the trigger now or are we not? We don't want to make the same mistake as last season, and we spoke about it before, that they either have to do it now or they just don't do it at all until January, February. Monty then comes in after Lee Johnson sacked. We draw 2-0 with Kelly, which I guess you could probably excuse him for. First game in charge, but then we look good against
2-0 up though.
I know, but in regards to him implementing what he wants or trying to understand what he's looking to do, good performance against St Johnstone, 2-0 victory. 4-2 against St Mirren, very good again. A very frustrating but very dominating performance at 0-0 at home to Dundee. It was 0-0 going on about 6-0. And then obviously saved by LAU and in the derby as well. That takes us into what I deem is the second pivotal match, which is the the 4-0 scalping at Ibrox. We spoke about it on this podcast. Is he going to change? Is he going to tweak? Is he going to be naive? Do you think at that point, yes, he was maybe a little bit naive, but do you think at that point he maybe had too much reliance on the players that had got him the relative success thus far? And do you think he underestimated the prospect of going to Ibrox and playing the way that he wanted to play instead of adapting?
Yeah, I think he maybe had a little bit of wool pulled over his eyes with the results that we'd had up to that point, and think that you can go to Ibrox and play the way that you want to play, and then in turn get a result. Very, very rarely happens that way, especially when you've been in the job for as little a time as he had and didn't really know the players that well. If it was a Jack Ross team, and I know Jack Ross wasn't in the manager's seat for a very long time, but towards the end of Jack Ross's tenure, if he was still playing the way that he wanted to play, then you could then go and say, well, listen, we've played this way, we've not come away with the result, and we'll go again. But I don't know. I think maybe he just stuck to his principles a little bit too much when it came to that. But see, for me, I'd actually erased that fucking game from my mind, to be honest. That 4-0 scalping at Ibrox. But the first pivotal game for me for Monty was the 2-2 at Tynecastle, to be honest with you, because that squad had shown, or parts of that squad had shown a lot of character in the previous season under Lee Johnson, and it was the first time that we'd proper seen a bit of character under Monty, and I think it was the first time that he'd kind of what's the word that I'm trying to get here? It was the first time that I'd noticed anyway that he'd kind of steered away from his principles a little bit and what he thought was right, so that the team could then prosper and get a half decent result, which we obviously did. And I thought that's him learning that he can't continue to try and play this brand of football that he wants and not have a backup plan that he can change to mid-game. And I thought after that game that we were really going to kick on, because showed a lot of character. Yeah, we probably weren't very great that game, and very, very lucky to come away with a 2-2. But it's results like that against Hearts away that usually springboard a season. So it was disappointing to see that it never kicked on for there. But no, that 4-0 against Rangers, Jesus Christ, makes me want to throw up.
You speak about steering away from your principles. I think that is summed up by the next game that I want to mention is the 3-0 defeat at home to St Mirren. Possibly the worst performance that we've both seen at Easter Road in such a long time. But before that, you mentioned about resilience. We obviously then, after that Rangers game, we played Celtic 0-0. We looked dominant. We looked okay. We looked strong at the back, something that we hadn't seen in a couple of games. And then we go on to have 2-2-alls in the space of a couple of weeks. 2-0 up against Ross County. Individual errors cost us 2-2. 2-1 up away to St Mirren. Individual errors cost us 2-2. But then we go and beat Killie at home. We then go and beat Dundee, and we play brilliantly. The Jai Tavares goal.
Mm-hmm.
We beat Aberdeen, and that's in between, obviously, the League Cup game at Hampden.
Yeah.
And then we go to Celtic, not expecting much. Didn't look like he learnt from his mistakes at Ibrox, and we get pumped again. And then before we go into the St Mirren game, spirits seemed to be up on the up. We beat Livy away, and it was a 1-0 win going on 2 or 3. A couple of chopped off goals as well. Yeah. Just touching on that performance as well, the St Mirren one at home. Do you think at that point the fans were starting to lose frustration with Monty? Because we now see it now where you'd probably say the vast majority of the fans are against Monty. That game is known for the potential arguments and spat and scrap in the changing room after the match. And lo and behold, after that, Monty's changing his formation. He's changing the way that we're looking to play. There's some principles still in there, but he's tweaked everything. Do you think that it should have been a stronger turning point in the season? But do you think that was where the fans started to be like, just this isn't the guy for us, and just couldn't buy into him?
Certainly didn't help. I think you could be anyone, and if you get beat 3-0 at home to anyone who's not the old firm, it's completely unacceptable. You know, with no disrespect to St Mirren, I think St Mirren have been fantastic this season. And you know, they completely deserve to be where they are. But historically, a club like Hibs, we don't, you know, we expect to not be trounced at home to St Mirren, and we were outclassed, outfought, and outperformed that day. I think Stephen Robinson in his presser afterwards said that he came to Easter Road and expected to win, and that shouldn't really be the kind of environment that we're setting. To be honest with you, and I think it's quite embarrassing. But I never turned at that point, because I think for a lot of the time that Monty's been in charge, and a lot of the time that Lee Johnson's been in charge, I've always been kind of we can't keep sacking managers. We're just going to be back in the same position. But no, I do think you're right. A lot of the fan base turned that day, and when the fan base starts to turn, you know, when the majority are turning, then you're not going to get them back. And even if you do beat Hearts or you do beat Celtic or Rangers, which we haven't, still difficult to get them back on side. You know, just look at Lee Johnson. Obviously beat Hearts in April last year, and was out a job by, what was it, September. So
yeah, you mentioned getting victories against these sides as well. I think the nature of the performance following that St Mirren defeat, the 2-1 defeat at home to Celtic, everyone could see, right, okay, this is more positive. And I think those that were maybe on the fence were maybe more leaning towards, right, okay, he's changing, we're looking a bit more positive.
Was that the one, the penalties one?
Aye, the penalties one, but and the Dylan Levitt goal. But the level of performance that we had that night was really good.
I thought we were great that night.
I think that was the game where Mariah Welsh came on. I can't remember. Maybe I'm looking too far back.
No, I think
vaguely
that
remember.
was a Rangers game, I think. Where I think they beat us. Did they not beat us 3-0 or something at home? And it was Mizzy Ann's debut and Mariah Welsh's debut, I think.
And then,
could be wrong. I might be wrong.
We then go and chuck another 2-2 game against. Well, we didn't chuck it, but it was still a 2-2 game, so it's frustrating. So they're building up. Beat Dundee at home. We've got the 1-1 away at Tynecastle, which, looking back now, is even more frustrating because the VAR has basically confirmed that they shouldn't have got it.
Even without that, though, Sean, we bossed them for the first half, and again, I think it's another game in which we played really well, but we've got fuck all to show for it, because we come away with a point, and the Hearts penalty is a farce, and it shouldn't be a penalty, like it shouldn't be, but we should have had enough in the performance that we'd given before they even got their penalty to be 2 or 3 goals to the good. That's maybe being a bit generous, but I felt that way when I was watching it on the telly, that was probably one of the better performances we've put in against Hearts. You know, in the last 5-6 years, certainly since the 3-1 game at Easter Road. So it's just,
it's fine. It's fine margins. It's been fine margins this season.
But it shouldn't be, because there's so many times where we've been really good and we've not capitalised, and we've kind of sat on our morals a wee bit, and then just kind of let the other teams come back into the game, and then we lose the momentum, and then that's us flat for the rest of the game. And it didn't happen against Celtic, but I mean, we lost that game, so it doesn't really matter if we played well or played shite, because we came away with nothing anyway. So it's frustrating. I'm going off my tangent.
Even after the Hearts game, we then have the double header against Ross County. You're thinking, right, get 6 points out of this, get top six, and then let's just see how the season unfolds from there. We get the win at home. We then concede another late goal for another 2-2 away, but then bounce back 3-0 up after 22 minutes at home to Livingston, and you're thinking, right, okay, again, we're talking about it in spells. We've looked really, really good. And that brings us on to the final game that I want to highlight as defining. I can't not talk about Craig Levine's success with St Johnstone. The 2-1 victory for them anyway, so the 2-1 defeat for us. Another poor performance when we needed it most. Do you think we, and I say we, either as a club, a fan base, the manager, or even the players, were or have been guilty of getting too ahead of ourselves and believing in the hype? Now, the reason why I ask that is and I know what you're going to say, but do you think that is playing a factor in why we're getting such dramatic changes in performances? So at times we're really, really good. So like Dundee away, or like even Dundee, St Johnstone, Killie at home earlier on in the season, Dundee at home as well, Ross County at home, Livy at home. I know these are all against lower, or what you would deem as lower sides in the league.
Teams that we've struggled against though in recent years.
But what we're doing is we're performing really, really well for a short period of time. We're getting the game won, we're seeing the game out, and then something's then happening, and then we go into another game, and then we're just not at the races at all. So to get back to my question, do you think we are victims of hyping ourselves up too much?
Fans, certainly. I mean, I said on the pod a few weeks, I think it was after we beat Dundee, that we would comfortably finish top six and that we would probably finish fourth and get European football. So anyone who's heard that or is looking back for that, you can clip that and show me at the end of the season for worst take of the year. But I think as fans we're allowed to believe the hype and get caught up in it all, because at the end of the day, it's the club that we love, and we want to see them do well. And I think we maybe romanticize the bits that shouldn't be romanticized, like a 1-0 win against Dundee, and and stuff like that, and a 2-1 defeat against Celtic. But what I don't think is acceptable is the players and the coaching staff believe in their own hype, because they're professionals. They're in that environment every single day. They shouldn't be in that mindset, and I don't know. That would frustrate me if I found, like, if the players were going, oh, it's only St Johnstone, oh, it's only Ross County. Because how many times throughout the years have we said that about your Ayr Uniteds, your whoever else has caused an upset against us? So you can't do that in football. Doesn't matter who you play for. If it's Hibs, Hearts, Celtic, Rangers, Man United, anyone, you can't be complacent. And if the players have become complacent because they put in a half decent shift against Celtic and got beat, then they've only got themselves to blame.
So to sum it up with a number, what would you rate the season out of 10?
2. No, that's maybe a bit harsh, because we're not going to be anywhere near the relegation. 3.
Such a big jump.
I was going to say 4, but then I was like, oh, that's maybe a bit generous.
No, I find it hard to disagree with you. I think a 3 or a 4 for me would be fair. I think, listen, 3's probably harsh, but when you look at the games that we've just spoke about, the 5 or 6 2-2s, the chucking away leads, the individual errors, all the other stuff that we've just spoke about.
If you hold on to like 30% of those leads that we've chucked away, and you look back at it now, and you go, nobody would be saying Nick Montgomery should be sacked, because we'd be so much further up the table. And it feels again, Sean, like another massive opportunity missed. I know Hearts have they've strolled it in third as they have done in a couple of the last few seasons, but Kilmarnock and St Mirren, yeah, they've been brilliant, but we should be finishing higher than them. And I say it with all due respect because I genuinely do think that the jobs that McInnes and Robinson have done at Killie and St Mirren have been great, and they definitely deserve to be where they are. And we can't just say, "Oh, we're Hibs, we should be above them." But
No, but
I mean,
the
we
reason
should
why
be closer.
you can no, I know, but the reason why you can also justify a ranking of a 3 or a 4 is, and I'm going to come on to your top 3 moments of the season. I struggled to pick top 3 moments, and I'll tell you right now, my top 3 moments don't include any specific result. So
I
we're
can't
talking about
even.
we're speaking about the games, right? That we've just spoke
Yeah,
about. We're speaking about the moments and things like that, and individual errors. We've spoke about VAR a lot this season and all that nonsense as well. If you can get a result against a Celtic, a Rangers, a Hearts, or somebody like that, home or away, if you can give fans a moment or moments to latch onto, then one, as a manager, you're going to give yourself more time, and two, you're going to have a happier fan base.
and that's maybe
The
why Lee
fact,
Johnson got as much time as he did, though, because of the results at the start of this last season against Rangers and Hearts. With those that kind of resilience and character and backbone that we showed in those two games, and St Johnstone as well, because we scored in the last minute against them too. So, I
and then ended
don't
the
know.
season well with a victory again, a good performance against Celtic, as well as beating Hearts. But
Yes. No, we
yeah,
never beat. Oh, I know. We never beat Hearts last game of the season. It was a draw, so we
no,
basically won.
aye, but the Kevin Nisbet goal at Easter Road, that's still moments that Lee Johnson can
Yeah.
latch onto. Um, right, top 3 moments of the season. First of all, do you have 3? Because I struggled to get 3.
I don't think so. I
Right.
think
Well, what I'll do is we'll go through mine first. Then I'll give you a wee bit more time to
you maybe
think.
give me a bit
So
of a clue.
I laugh more than anything else. So coming in third is the limbs and the celebrations for 15 minutes of Emi Marcondes' goal against Hearts at Tynecastle. That is the third best thing that I have experienced for Hibs this season.
That's
So,
upsetting.
but just wait until you hear 2-1, and then that'll show you really how upset I have been with Hibs this season. Number 2, the second best thing that happened to me this season regarding Hibs was Lewis Miller
I
giving
was
it the
going to say that.
YLT. Lewis Miller giving it the YLT on our interview with him earlier on in the season.
I was
That's
going to
number
say
2.
that as well.
So that's not even on pitch related. Um, and in fairness, I do think, considering how poor the season has been, I do think some people will have this at number 1 or would have this at number 1. My number 1, Liam, was singing Sunshine and Leith at Villa Park.
I wasn't there, so I can't put
Um,
that.
it still puts into perspective how shit a season it's been. It still puts into perspective how bad we have been this season. But again, we spoke about it the last 2 or 3 weeks. Me and
Yeah.
you and Tony spoke about it, and then Billy, Craig, and Cal spoke about it. We speak about
Yeah.
moments, whether it be on the pitch or off the pitch. That's what gives you memories. That's what gives you the love for the club. That's what gives you the reason for the
Of
support. And
course.
that whole trip for me, the Blackpool one was great as well. But again, not the performance on the pitch. But
Oh, who
the
cares? It was a
trip,
friendly.
the trip down to Birmingham for me is something that will live with me for a very long time, and many other Hibs fans as well. So my number 1 moment of the season is singing Sunshine on Leith at Villa
That's
Park.
fucking shite, by the way.
It's terrible.
Fucking 8-0 down on aggregate.
So we've got 15 minutes of limbs. We've got a player throwing a gang sign on an interview, and we've got singing a song as a top 3.
I'm
What's
trying to
yours,
think of
Liam?
3 other
Coming in
ones.
at number 3.
I don't know. I don't know if these will be ranked like in order, but I mean, I can maybe think of 3. One of them is Adam Lafondre's flick, his flick and assist for Dylan Vente's header against Luzerne. I enjoyed
9
that.
months ago.
Yep, when Lee Johnson was the manager. Um, Second, I think I'm going to go. My favourite moment of the season was the hope and optimism I felt after you were pining for Nick Montgomery, after we
Talk
sacked
about
Lee
worst
Johnson,
takes for the season.
after we sacked Lee Johnson, and you were going on about this is what he's done and all this, and he'd be here for the long haul. And I was thinking, get him in, absolutely get him in. So that was a good feeling. Didn't last very long, mind. And the other one, I don't know, maybe scoring at Hampden. Scoring at Hampden and then no
And then it being
counting.
disallowed.
I know, but it took ages for it to be disallowed. So
But it just sums up the season that we've had, doesn't it? What would be what's the best game then that you've attended this season? Because it goes without saying for me, it's Villa away, which is weird because it was a thumping, but everything that comes with
yeah,
it. So for me, you could have the best and the worst game is the Villa home and away leg, but for me, the best game that I attended was Villa away. What about you?
best game I attended was a game that we lost, and it was the first league game of the season against St Mirren because it was the first game that I took my wee girl to. So sentimental reasons, that was my favourite game of the season because she enjoyed it, and I thought because I'm sure we were 2-0 down and we got it back to 2-2 and they scored the last minute.
Something like that, aye.
So it was good when we got it back to 2-2, I suppose.
And what about the worst game
The worst
for you?
game that I was at,
Because I don't think you were at the St Mirren game, and that's the worst one for me.
no, I
Because
was at the St Mirren game. I was
right,
there.
I left
But
at half time. And I'm not one of these who I never leave. I stay until the final whistle and stuff like that. Like if you want to leave, you leave,
I
right? And
usually
I've
stay
never,
until.
aye, and I've never left that early. I think you're maybe talking maybe 10, 15 minutes at
I'm
a
sure
most
we
when we're
were
getting
talking
pumped
about it in the
4-0.
chat that day. That
But when I was sitting next to my sister at the game, and I said to her when it was 2-0, I went, if this goes to 3 before half time, I'm away. And then it happened, and she just looked at me, and I just burst out laughing because what else can you do? And then I
there's
just got
been a
up and
lot of
left.
points this season where I've just ended up pissing myself laughing at Hibs. Worst game, I think, apart from that, is maybe the 1-0 at home to Hearts because
That was
it was
sickening.
so late. The goal was so late. It was such a stupid error. I feel like
I
a
was
draw
up.
probably
I was
wouldn't have
up
been.
and I was up and out my seat before he hit that shot because as soon as Rocky made that error, I knew what was coming. So I was already gone.
It's a shame because I thought we played well that night as well, and we just couldn't get the ball in the back of the net. And yeah, typical Derby performance, really, isn't it?
It is. We're going to move on from one negative to another, which you'll be absolutely delighted to hear. What we're going to do is we're going to do something a bit different. So we've reviewed the season. Liam and I have pretty much agreed on a scorecard of 3 out of 10. So well done, Lee Johnson. Well done, Nick Montgomery. Well done, Hibernian Football Club on that one. What we're
Can
going to
I
do now
put
is we're going to have a
another moment
quick.
into my top 3, please?
You can make it
And
a
that
top 4
is
if you want.
yeah, and that is the Black Knight stuff. That's a good moment.
At the moment, it's a good moment.
Yeah, well, that's what I felt like after you were talking about Nick Montgomery. So
Yeah, that
take
could
from
go
that
down
what
as
you will.
worst. That could go down as worst take. What we're going to do now is we're going to move on and do a player review. So we're not going to do like a buy, sell, keep, or a loan start bench and stuff like that. We're going to do something slightly different.
Because if you want to listen to one of them, then Down the Slope did a really good one.
Yeah, correct.
Last week, I think. So if you want to listen
Correct.
to one that's a buy, sell, loan, sorry, a sell, keep, loan, something like that, then have a listen to theirs because what they did it the other week and it was really good.
Yeah, completely agree. I think I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago where both us and Down the Slope and Lone Bangers are kind of doing slightly different content because since we finished in the bottom 6. So Down the Slope have had a couple of good episodes about other things, managers and the buy, keep, sell stuff. And
There's
then
only so much we can do. There's only so much good
well,
times
that's
to look
it.
back on.
You've got to try and keep it positive. We've done the upbeat ones the last couple of weeks with the 21st century stuff, which has went down really well. So we were going to put a different spin on it, so because there's no point recycling content. It's not what we're here to do. And to be fair, we did already have it planned to do that, but we're just going to put a different spin on it this time. So we're going to rate them based on the season that they've had. So not necessarily whether we want them here next season or not, or whether they're good enough to be here next season. We're just purely rating them on how they've been this season. So we've got 4 categories that we're going to rank them into: underachieved, average, good, and proud of themselves. So just for a bit of context, this isn't necessarily what we think. This is maybe necessarily what the players should be looking at when they do their self-evaluating at the end of the season. If they feel that,
because they're going to come and listen to the Hibs Ramble.
I know. Whether they feel like they've underachieved, or whether they had a pretty average season, or whether they had a good season. And I gave Liam the example before we started recording that 10 plus goals, 10 plus assists, Ellie Yuan, for some people, is probably underachieved or average, but on the face of it, considering what he's contributed to the season, he could probably be proud of himself. So then he would be in the top category. Whereas someone like maybe Martin Boyle, who gets a lot of loving online, and rightly so, because he's one of our best players, you could probably filter under, underachieved by his standards. So that's the bit of context that we're just putting to it. If you want to abuse us, that's fine. You know where we're at. So what we'll do, Liam, is we'll just go through it position by position. So we've got, feel free to give your rationale behind it as well, should you wish. And then what I'll do is I'll categorise it as we go on. And then hopefully, if you have a spare 2 minutes, you can filter up a wee graphic for the listeners, and we can chuck it out so we can get abused even more. Okay, David Marshall.
David Marshall, good, not great. I think you know what you get with Marsh. Half decent goalie, obviously aging a bit. He's kind of losing it a wee bit, so I'll go average for Marsh.
I completely agree. He was good in spells, but I think obviously he has let us down sometimes. Some really good saves, point blank and stuff like that. He did up his performance a couple of times, but yeah, by his standards and by his expectations, probably average. I'm going to assume where you're going to put Jojo Wallacott, but I'm going to let you answer it instead of me.
I don't really think he fits into any of these categories. He's had 3.5 games or something. So I think it would be unfair to put him in underachieved, because what could he have achieved in 3.5 games? Average by his standard.
When he has been. My argument to that would be when he's been called upon in both games, Ross County at home and
Ross County away.
Ross County again, Ross County away. Individual error from him, but arguably, which has led to costing us points and costing us a goal. So if he's been brought in for a fee with the expectation that he's going to challenge Marshall, he's not done much of a challenge, considering I think he's only played 3 games.
We can maybe,
so for me, I would have him as underachieved.
Yeah, I think if you underachieved / disappointed by his level of performance, but at the same time, playing devil's advocate, 3.5 games is never enough time to judge a player. But when you're a goalie and you make like 2 or 3 mistakes in 3.5 games, then you're not off to a good start, are you?
No, you can only go off of what we're given, and if there'll be a reason. Even when David Marshall got picked up a couple of injuries and stuff like that throughout the season, it's not as if Wallacott could either keep his space or fill the jersey or anything. As soon as Marshall was anywhere near fit, he was back in the starting 11, and that probably speaks volumes as well.
Yeah, even when Marshall wasn't playing very well.
Exactly. So, Lewis Miller.
He had a really good start to the season, kind of plateaued a little bit, and hasn't really been seen for a long time. So I feel bad putting him in average though, because he came on the Ramble. So I feel like I should probably put him in good. We'll put him in good for the YLT.
I would agree with putting him in good. I think, yes, he had a couple of bad performances, and he'll be the first to say that himself. But I think at times
It
especially at the beginning of the
certainly was an
season.
improvement on last season.
Yeah, he was very strong. It's unfortunate that arguably his individual error or lapse of judgment in the Aberdeen semi-final cost us the goal, in my opinion. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's not overly harsh to filter him in as a having a good season. What about Chris Cadden? Just before I get your thoughts on it, I would put Chris Cadden as proud of themselves. Now, the
Yeah, I think
reason
so.
why is
I
maybe to come back for the injury that he's had, and also the level of performance that he's given us since he's came back.
sticking out of an injury, notoriously very difficult to come back from and hit the ground running. But I think he is coming to a team that has been performing really, really poorly and been a bit of a bright spark. So I think he probably can be proud of himself, and I think he probably is proud of himself to come back and hold down that jersey for the time that he's been back. And kind of filter right back into that team again. Because I bet you at the start of the season he was probably a bit worried, seeing how well Lewis Miller was playing. So no, I'm delighted for Cads, and I think Kenny obviously needs to go on a bit of a a player by player basis, but I think he probably can be proud of himself for how he's performed and how he's come back and kind of slipped right back into the first team.
What about someone that slipped out of the first team, Paul Hanlon?
Now I always feel like Paul has been very underrated. I think we have looked at times, not all the time necessarily, but I think at times we've looked a worse team without him in it. Despite the fact that I'm not convinced that he's captain material. I'm not convinced that he's the best leader that we've got in the team. I do feel like he's the kind of glue that holds the back four together. When Rocky's in it and when Will Fish is in it. But is that enough to get him into having a good season? I don't think so. I would say I don't even want to say average by his standards, because his standard is usually very, very good. And I don't want to put him in underachieve because I don't think he has. I'll put him in average just because I think it would be really harsh to put him in underachieved.
Now I'm just going to list the next three because I feel like the next three will all be in the same category. I feel like the next three players have all underachieved, whether it be by their standards or perception of the fans. And I feel like all three of them haven't been good enough. One is classed as the most improved Hibs player this season, but I still don't feel like there's been a vast improvement enough or a good enough improvement. And those three players are Will Fish, Nectar Triantis, and Rocky Bashiri. Do you have any disagreements with putting them as underachieved?
I think we could probably put Nectar Triantis in absolutely fucking stinking a gaff out. If we can make a category for that, I think Nectar's been. It's just not worked for Hibs and Nectar, I'm afraid. I really wanted it to work, but it hasn't worked, and sometimes these things happen. But yeah, definitely underachieved. Another disappointment. Put him in the disappointment category. Will Fish, underachieved, absolutely. Considering what we saw last season. And Rocky, people have said, yeah, he's been the most improved player, but I don't think he has been the most improved player, to be honest, because performances like that from Rocky Bushiri haven't they're not like once in a blue moon sort of thing. I think a lot of people like to think that Rocky is a complete bomb scare. And at times he is, of course he is, but he's got that level of performance in him, and we've seen it from the day that he stepped into the building. So I'd be inclined to put him in average because I don't think he's done an awful lot wrong this season. And especially when he came back from AFCON, I thought he was really good for a few games. He's maybe kind of flattened out a little bit, but I would probably put him into average rather than underachieved, to be honest.
That's fine. Not a problem. Two left backs next, Lewis Stevenson and Jordan Abita, your player of the year. Yeah, for me personally, even by Lewis Stevenson's level of performance, I would probably put him in as average, but that's no slight on obviously him. It's just the contribution that he's made this
He's
season.
hardly played, so
When called upon, he's been okay. But again, when you're 36, what can you expect? Whereas Jordan Abita, could potentially win Player of the Year. He has been probably the most consistent player. Very, very ropey start to the season, but I think he could probably be proud of his first season to an extent.
100%. I think if you're a left back coming into Hibs and you see that we've not had anyone that we've brought in, knock a boy off his perch for the last nearly 20 years, you may be thinking, what chance have I got? But Jordan Abita has come in, and yeah, Lewis Stevenson's 36, but last season he was 35 and he played an awful lot of games. So, and that was when we had Chabraya as well. You'll remember, and he was obviously brought in to be the one to replace. But Jordan's been great this season. I think he could probably be pretty proud of himself. Won over a lot of the fans, I think, with his level of performance, and especially that goal against Luzerne. Was pretty good as well. But Lewis Stevenson, I don't really want to put him in any category because I don't think he's played enough games to be kind of shoehorned into anything like that. But if I had to, it'd be average, just because.
Yeah.
Straight down the middle.
We'll move on to midfield now, and one player that we won't be including in this is Jake Doyle-Hayes, because other than the games at the beginning of the season and the first league game of the season, he's obviously not really featured, unfortunately. So he's only 25 to be fair. So regardless of where his future lies and what that looks like, it'll be interesting to see what's next for Jake. A midfielder that we did thought was going to set the league alight for us was Dylan Levitt. I don't know about you, Liam, but I'm toying between average and probably more leaning towards underachieve, just because of the level that we know he can achieve, and by his standards, he'll be nowhere near what he wanted to achieve.
Yeah, I think he'd probably be the first to say that. By his standards, especially the standards that he set when he was at Dundee United, albeit he's in a different team now, but we expected to see a little bit more from him. And is that because he's been playing a little bit deeper than he's usually been playing when he was at United? Who knows? But definitely for me, fits into underachieve, because when he comes in, obviously it's a marquee signing. Everyone's expecting big things, and that he's going to be a starter every week and kind of drive us towards European football. And it just never kind of got off the ground for him, unfortunately. And for me, I think he can only go into underachieved.
What about someone who really does split the support, Joe Newell? We know what he can provide, we know what he can give, but a real frustration from him as well as the vast majority of the support is, we know the ability that he's got, but it's just never,
to be honest,
really at that level.
I think that Joe's performances this season have been a lot more consistent and consistently good than they have been in the last few years. I think maybe last season he was maybe a little bit more consistent, a bit better, but I still don't think that he's had a bad season. I think I'd be inclined to put him into good. Definitely seen him have a lot worse seasons than he's had this season. Sometimes no help by the players that he's been playing with this season, the formations that he's had to endure, and the sort of instability that has been brought by the current gaffer. But I would be inclined to put Joe Newell into having had a good season.
One person that definitely hasn't had a good season, and we probably knew this when we signed him due to the level of injuries that he gets, but he is definitely a real quality player with real potential. Luke Amos.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, Liam, but I was really excited when we signed him. Based on his credentials, based on the expectation that comes with the name that he's built up from down south. It's just a shame that at the moment it's not worked out. So I would definitely be putting him underachieved, because by his standards himself personally, he probably would be wanting to play a lot more.
Yeah,
And I mean,
probably.
hopefully we get to see more of that.
I think I into that underachieved / disappointed bracket there. Like, exactly for all the reasons that you said. I was excited when he came in. He's got a half decent pedigree from being at QPR. So no, it's a shame that he's not played as many games as we thought he might have. But I think from what I've seen of him, I think he looks a half decent player. Definitely good enough for this league. So hopefully we get to see it a wee bit more next season. But it maybe will just be, like you put out on the Twitter the other day, right player, wrong time. So hopefully that's not the case, and he does get a good crack at it next season if he stays fit. But I think for me, underachieved and disappointed for sure. Not in terms of his performance, but in terms of the circumstances and his
Contribution,
injuries
yeah.
and contribution or lack thereof.
I think a player that could potentially go down as right player, wrong time as well, for me anyway, would be Emi Marcondes. Now, I think you could, by his high standards, you could even put him as underachieved in regards to the caliber of player that we were getting. I know that would still be
Yeah.
very harsh, but by his standards, he described himself as a cold pasta that wanted to heat up when he signed. And I just don't think that we've got that piping hot pasta yet from him. Average probably at times, but you see again at the weekend, or the weekend before that, sorry, St Johnstone, 30-yard world day, a free kick in the top bag. There has been moments from him. I'm definitely one of his biggest fans. He's maybe just not performed to the standard that we want him to. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a mixture of the league. I don't know if that's a mixture of where he's at fitness wise, the players around him. But when he's linking up with Mizian, they look like they're on the same wavelength. But when he's trying to link in with someone else, he looks like he's maybe not on the same wavelength, and that's maybe a detriment of both those players.
Yeah,
So
I
I think
think
for me, I would probably filter under and maybe squeeze him into good, but you could probably argue maybe average as well. I don't know.
I think I would go average. He showed glimpses of real quality. Um, especially when he first signed and he first sort of had his first few games, and he looked really good, and that he was that missing link that we'd been looking for all season. But it's kind of petered out, fizzled out a little bit, and unfortunately, it's just not kind of kept up that momentum. But there's clearly a very good player there. I don't know if his injuries have got anything to do with the intensity he's able to put in, but I don't think he makes it into good for me. I think he makes it into average. If he'd have continued his run of form and he's showing glimpses of real quality throughout, then I think he probably would have made it into good. It's all well and good, turning up when we're in the bottom six and we're playing dead rubbers. But yeah, average for me.
Yeah, there's players in the squad that for me you want to be building a team around, and he, in my opinion, is one of 3 or 4 players in our squad,
Yeah,
and he's the first one that we've came on to that I would be wanting to build the team around, so to speak.
I think
But
so.
I think his wage will obviously demand a little bit too much. But for me, I would still be doing whatever we can to try and sign someone like that. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I think if, like you say, if it's not easy to come in January and be the difference maker, but he did it for for the first month or so.
It's like he done it and then Mizian took over. Do
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So
yeah,
they're maybe at different levels of their recovery. We
I
spoke
think
about it
so.
when they signed, that it maybe take 8 weeks for us to see the best of these players. It took
Yeah,
us, it took us a while, but maybe not as much as 8 weeks. And maybe,
um,
like you said, maybe a full pre-season behind them.
yeah. I think some of the stick that Marcondes has taken on social media the last few weeks is some of it's been warranted and some of it has maybe been a little bit too far. He's clearly a very good player. He's a very gifted player, and he again comes to the club with a lot of pedigree and a lot of experience in a very good league in the Championship and the Premier League. So, if we can get him back in for next season and build around him, then I think we will see a lot better from him that we've seen in the last few weeks. If we can keep him fit, like you said, I think he just needs players that are on the same wavelength as him. And unfortunately, some of the players that we've got aren't, and that kind of shows where we're at and what we need to strengthen and what we need to do in the summer.
One of the
But
other
average for me. Average for me.
Yeah. One of the other 4 players that I mentioned and alluded to that I would be building a team around and making them the heart and soul of the team. And one that I think has performed relatively well, maybe not can be proud of his contribution, but he certainly thinks he's done okay and done good, is Nathan Mariah-Welsh.
Yeah, for sure.
I
I don't think.
genuinely love the boy to bits. We talk about, you mentioned earlier on, Lewis Stevenson running on passion more than anything else. This boy looks like he's got abundance of passion for this club already.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
listen, if you can buy into the club, which is what it looks like he's doing, if we can build a team around someone like that, then I think we'll be just fine.
Absolutely. I've been really impressed with Nathan Mariah-Welsh since he came in. I don't think anyone was really expecting the level that he's at. When he came in, obviously we've seen so many players come up from down south who have been, half decent in the Premier League too, and for the Resies and all that, but have been, total bobbins when they come up here. So I don't think anyone really expected anything to the level that he's given. Still very, very young, 21-year-old, 22-year-old, something like that.
Yeah, 22.
So, he's got his prime ahead of him. For me, he filters into good. Can be proud of himself, maybe bordering on that because, maybe he didn't expect to play so well and be as much of a mainstay in the team as he has been when he first came up the road. So I don't know, maybe an in-betweeny one, that one. I really like Nathan as well. I think he's a fantastic wee player. And to put a category on it, I'm going to go. Do we have anything could be proud of themselves apart from Obita?
Chris Callan. I think if you compare what Nathan has contributed to the team in comparison to what those two maybe have or what have came back from,
yeah, let's put him in good.
and then if you maybe look at like Joe Newell or Lewis Miller, you're probably talking about a similar level, in my opinion.
Yeah, let's go good. Let's go good.
Jai Tavares.
Well under Nectar Triantas. I don't know what to say too much because I feel like Jer.
Well,
everyone was really nasty about Jer, and then everyone really loved Jer, and then everyone's kind of being really nasty about Jer again. So I think I just don't think he's cut out for this level. And I might be proved wrong in years to come. I just don't think
wrong environment at the time. I think.
Yeah, I don't think Scotland is the right place for Jer. He's too flashy. He's too. I don't know, it's cliche. He's too lightweight. He's too this. He's too that. But he is, and he'd probably be better suited off in Spain, Portugal, Italy.
I can't wait to see him
like
take Portugal futsal team to the World Cup final. and win it for them. But just
There's no doubt that he's got technical ability, but I just don't think that his no, he does though. He does. I think he does have technical ability. I just don't think the level that his ability is at is what we need as a football club at this moment in time. We don't need project players. We need players who can come in and make a difference. And I just don't think at this moment in time there's a spot for Jair Tavares. And despite his redemption arc, his small redemption arc in the middle of the season, I'm just going to put him in underachieved.
one player that you could probably filter under underachieved as well this season, purely on comparison to last. Lewis Stevenson, Paul Hanlon are going to be leaving, so we're going to have even more representation in the team in regards to fans. Josh
Don't
Campbell.
say it. Don't say it.
Um,
What I think you're going to say.
Well, let me finish. You can let me land. I think last season, Josh certainly would have been more than proud of his contribution. I think it's just unfortunate how things have unfolded. But I think when called upon this season, he has performed and performed well. It's just unfortunate that he's been injured. So I don't think there's any room to put him anywhere other than maybe just an average season. You know, coincided with the fact that he
Yeah.
performed well when asked to, but then
Yeah.
being injured. So
Done a
tough.
job. I think he was playing well in that Hearts game as well before he got. Was it not one of our own players that took him out?
Yes, I can't remember who it was, but yeah, it was. It
Absolute
was a challenge.
peak
Aye,
Hibs that.
aye.
No, I think even me, Josh Campbell's biggest fan, can't really advocate for putting him in anything other than average. Completely agree with what you say though. When he's had to come in this season, he's done a job. He's done it well. People love to hate Josh Campbell, which is a shame because he loves Hibs and he always leaves it all out on the park, like Stevenson, like Hanlon. I feel, and maybe if you're a Hibs fan, then you're maybe a little bit more susceptible to the fans coming for you a little bit. I don't know, but yeah,
There's a little bit more
average.
of an understanding more than anything else from Josh. But yeah, you're right. It's not nice to see. There certainly
Average
has been a
football.
player who is. And we'll move on to the forwards now. Who has taken a lot of flack this season, unwarranted in my opinion, warranted at times, but not to the extent that this player receives. You mentioned about Josh Campbell getting a lot of flack and being a Hibs fan and stuff like that, and he can kind of understand why he's maybe getting the flack that he is and understand what comes with playing for Hibs and things like that. Yuan, for me, and you're going to have to talk me down from this pedestal I'm about to put him on. I think he can be proud of his contribution to the club this season. Yes, at times susceptible to a mistake, susceptible to holding on to the ball too long, maybe choosing the wrong option, taking a shot when he should be cutting it across. But for me, as a permanent player, the most technically gifted that we have in our squad, I would put Marcondes as the most technically gifted, but Yuan is the most technically gifted permanent player that we have, in my opinion. And I think for someone that plays for Hibs, who isn't an out-and-out striker, who doesn't play through the middle,
To put up that amount of numbers
to
is
put up that amount of numbers, and bearing in mind he hasn't started a lot of games this season. He's been injured quite a bit as well, so his
yeah,
minutes aren't the highest. For him to get above 10 goals and 10 assists, I think it's like, what, 10 goals and 12 or 13 assists now or something like that.
yeah,
In the time frame that he has, and across since he joined the club, he is by far and away the most productive player that we have on the pitch. So yes, he gets like a lot of stick, and a lot of it is very, very unwarranted. Or he could have tackled Anthony Ralston a bit harder, or he could have tracked that St Mirren player an extra couple of yards. But flashy players like that aren't in the team to do the doggy work. They're not there to
yeah,
do the defensive work. They're there to be flashy. They're there to be mavericks. They're there to create special moments. And listen, Ellie Yuan gave us a couple of special moments at Tynecastle this season. He's not had the greatest season, but for me, he
No,
can
he's not.
certainly, based on what he's contributed, which is what we're talking about here, for me, I think he can be proud of what he's contributed to the team. So feel
He's
free
gone-
to talk me down on that one.
No, I'm struggling to find the points to disagree with you, to be honest. I think for his contribution in terms of numbers, it's excellent. Especially for, he's been in, out, in, out, in, out.
Shake it all about.
Exactly. The only disappointing thing about me this season for Elian, actually, Ken, what I'll I'll say something positive first before I go into a negative. And for a positive first, a player who clearly was trying to impress when he was on loan last year, to come in and have another good season on the back of that is usually pretty uncommon. Pretty uncommon, because if players are playing for contracts or playing for permanent moves, then they'll usually, subconsciously probably up their level, and then when they've got that security and that safety, then they'll go back down to the level that they're at. And sometimes you won't see the same player. I think Canberra, maybe McLaren. And McLaren maybe doesn't count because he was only on loan, but other players like that. The only disappointing thing that about me for Ellie this season is that I just don't think he's looked like he's enjoyed it as much as he did last season. And I don't know what that's down to. Probably not being a
Yeah,
constant
I would
starter.
probably.
Just
I
doesn't
would
look like he's
personally
enjoyed it
put
as
that
much.
down to a mixture of maybe injury and fan perception, because he's very active on social media. And
That
the
was so
social
funny when he
media,
was like, "Shut your mouth, I'm injured."
I know. And the social media isn't a true reflection of the Hibs support, in my opinion.
No, of course
And I
not.
think for him, I think that's probably what has hampered him this season. And that's probably why he's looked like he's not in it. But that doesn't mean that what he's contributed isn't strong,
Yeah.
in my
No,
opinion.
I think it would be very difficult to not put him into he can be proud of his contribution, because at the end of the day, is he our top scorer? Or
Mizian is technically our top goal scorer, I think.
Well, he's
Definitely in the league. He is
he's
anyway.
top for GA, so
Yeah.
You can't really sniff at that, especially in the season that we've been having. Goals have been pretty hard to come by, and he's had a big hand in 23, 24, 25 of them. So I think it would be daft if you look at the numbers and think anything else other than can be proud of his contribution. But you're never going to please some people, and I think Ellie maybe needs to realise that a little bit, and maybe bring a little bit more of the joy back into playing football. And hopefully next season we see a little bit of a more happier Ellie Yuan, and even better numbers, hopefully.
I just don't think it'll be Easter Road, if I'm honest. Moving on to another player who is probably maybe underachieved, but was maybe performing at a decent standard at some point in the season, is Dylan Vente. So you touched on it earlier on. Started the season very, very strong. He'd scored like 5 goals and 6 shots on target or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
Probably a victim of the manager change, a victim of the constant change in philosophy, shape, mixed with maybe a little bit of injury as well. I don't know if you want to maybe filter him under an underachiever, maybe average, because of what he contributed at the start of the season. I don't know. It is a very, very tough one. And again, this could be another one that, if the right offer comes in, we might end up just having to cut our losses on him, and not because we want to get rid of him, but maybe because he wants to go, which would be a real shame.
I think underachieved purely because of the amount of money that we spent on him and the amount of return on investment that we've seen is not what you would expect for the amount of money that we spent, 700, 800 grand on a striker, and to get how many goals he got, like 6 or 7, 8 maybe. I just don't think it's good enough. And yeah, I think he has been victim to being asked to play where he's not comfortable to play. But for me, underachieved. A good player deals with that and takes it in their stride. I sound like I'm being really negative on Dylan Vente here. I didn't feel like that at all. I really want him to do well, but he's not shown me enough this season. And again, he's another one that I hope will maybe enjoy his football a little bit more next season, and in turn, his numbers will improve. And that for me is probably going to come with a change of management
or club. Yeah.
Yeah,
Speaking
maybe.
of a
He'll maybe
player
get a move
that,
to Kilmarnock or something.
aye, Van
Aye.
Veen-esque, a player that has, for me, underperformed this season by his standards or by our expectations of him as a club. You could maybe argue that he's maybe had an average season, depending on your outlook on the player. Martin Boyle. So for context, Martin Boyle has only scored 3 league goals. He's got 3 league assists, but he's got 6 yellow cards. So he has more
Mhm.
yellow cards than he does goals in the
He's
league.
underachieved for me.
Um,
He has, and
he's
I think
got he's at the moment he's ending the season on 9 goals, and 4 assists, which by his standards is probably nowhere
is
near
really,
the
really
kind of
poor.
numbers that he would expect. Yeah.
Underachieved for me. Uh, and it's maybe just a case of we're expecting the same Martin Boyle of 2020 and 2024. He's 4 years older. It strikes me, and I'm not trying to compare them at all because Martin Boyle's a much better player, but Mo Salah at Liverpool.
Hmm.
I feel like this summer, Liverpool would probably be pretty happy to see Mo Salah. Well, not happy, but they wouldn't be as desperate to throw everything at him to keep him this summer. And I feel like we're maybe in the same position with Martin Boyle. Great servant to the club. Scored a lot of good goals, a lot of important goals, and brought a lot of happy times and memories, but underachieved this year, and maybe a position on the pitch we should be maybe looking to strengthening.
I'm glad you said strengthen and not replace, if I'm honest. I think that's probably the key word there. We've got a couple more to end on. You touched on one of them and I touched on another one. But before we get on to those two, I'm just going to put Eli Mayenda straight into underachieved. I feel like he's just been brought up for
Put
vibes.
him into who?
Exactly. He's just been brought up as a passenger princess for Nectar Triantis, unfortunately, which is a shame.
Nectar
He
obviously
looks like
can't drive, so he
aye,
needed a lift.
that's it. Nectar is the passenger princess. The 2 players that we've got left, Liam, are Mizian Malida and Adam Lafondra. So
Yeah.
it's up to you which one you want to start with there.
Let's go with Alfie.
So we can
And
end on an even better positive.
yeah, probably. But I think Alfie at what is he, 37 or 36?
6.
At 36 years old, coming from India to Scotland after having played. Oh no, sorry, coming from Australia to Scotland after having played in India, like the season or two before, can probably be pretty proud of himself. Plagued by injuries, but when he's been in the team, he's looked real quality. He has the sort of game intelligence that you wish Dylan Vente had, and that just comes with experience. I am a massive, massive fan of Alfie, and I would be very much inclined to put him in. Can be proud of himself for the contribution that he's given to the team. Maybe not in terms of numbers, but in terms of probably what he's given to the other players in terms of experience and know-how, and like what he can help them with in terms of learnings and stuff. But you can put him in good. You can put him in. Could be proud. I
I,
came
I, I
up.
probably I probably would have put him in good. And I think for me, if he didn't start the season as strong as he did, then he probably would have been further down than that. I think the way that he started, it was more of a, like, because when we signed him, it's like, right, okay, 36. I think he's maybe had a little bit more of a contribution than maybe even he thought, or maybe that we thought as a support. But when he has contributed, it's been of a decent standard. Obviously,
I
he's
think
only
he's
scored a
always
couple of goals.
he's always looked, when we brought him on, because there's not been an awful lot of games where he started, but he's been like the impact's up, and which is mental at 36, but when he's come on, he's always looked like he's done all right, and he's improved the team. Maybe we've not always won or got a positive result, but he's definitely looked like a half decent player anyway. And it's a shame that he's not going to be here next season.
Yeah, the news coming just the other day that we won't be renewing his contract or extending the deal or anything like that. Do you think that's the right move by the club, or clearly getting rid of the older, wiser side of
I suppose
the
time will tell.
squad?
Time will tell, but I think that whoever you bring in, because we're obviously going to need another couple of bodies in that position over the summer. Whoever you bring in is going to learn bags and bags off of Adam Lafondre, but is that worth keeping an unhappy player who obviously feels like he can still play? Probably not. I mean, it was probably a mutual decision, to be honest. I mean, Alfie probably feels like he can go and give another season or two.
Contribute
Definitely
somewhere.
looks like he can give another season or two. So,
Especially at this level.
Yeah, exactly. If he's not going to get it at Hibs, then he doesn't owe us anything. He doesn't owe us any loyalty to stick about and give us, give us that time. So, get him moved on, and I hope he does really, really well wherever he goes next.
A Grant Holt kind of job more than anything else.
Yeah, aye. No.
Last player, Mizian Malida. I tried to find my tweet. I couldn't remember if it was to his sign-in or Marconde's sign-in. I put a tweet out in reply to when we started signing these players, being like, good, we're signing quality over quantity, blah, 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 all the usual nonsense that I was spouting in January. Some of it has came true and some of it has not. I said that he would produce 12 GA by the end of the season, and he's on 14.
Wow.
So he's done not bad, albeit I did say 6 goals and 6 assists. So my split is a little bit different. He scored 11. Well, he scored 7 goals for Hibs and 1 assist. But for obviously the season, he scored in the Scottish Cup as well. So it's 8 goals and one assist for Hibs that he scored. So he's sitting on, what's that, 9 goal contributions for Hibs, and he came in at the end of January.
Ridiculous, to be honest.
He's not far off the 12 that I predicted. Real quality. He, for me, can definitely be proud of what he's contributed, and I would be very, very concerned about where we would be without his 7 or 8 goals and assist.
I think if you've to chuck the kitchen sink at either Bournemouth or Hertha, you chuck it at Hertha to get Mizian back in. Another one of these players who shows real quality. Albeit I didn't think his debut was that great. And you're thinking, oh, we've maybe got a wee bit of a dud here, but every game after that he's been incredible. So I don't think it's one who's going to be at the club next season. Definitely helped us out from January. Like you said, I wouldn't like to think about where we would be. A clever rambler will probably be able to figure it out. We would be without his goal contributions. So if you can figure it out, please let us know, because I bet you it wouldn't be pretty. But tell you this, he's been probably one of the better players that we've seen come into the building in the last few years. So yeah, I think can be proud of his contribution, and I think for the fact that he was like a black sheep at Hertha and kind of out in the cold, he's maybe done enough to get himself back into the fray there.
Nah,
Hopefully
manager
for
hates
him.
him.
Oh, really?
Managers came out. Yeah, managers
Why?
came out, said he doesn't want him at the club. So I don't know if it's attitude, don't know if it's ability, I don't know what it is. To answer your question, would be anything between 5 to 8 points, depending on the outcome of the games that he scored in, worse off. So if we were 5 points worse off, we'd be in 10th. We'd be in 9th.
Jesus.
Only 3 points above St Johnstone, and if we were 8 points worse off, we'd be joint 10th with St Johnstone.
Fuck me. And how many
That's
points
depending
clear of
on
Ross County would we be?
1.
Fuck's sake.
So we would be in a relegation playoff scrap without Mizian Malida, but I think that goes without saying. Yeah, I agree with you. If we were to break the bank for either of them, it would be him. Albeit, I think Marcondes is technically more gifted and is a better player. I think that, I mean, stats don't lie. We spoke about it with Yuan. So, same with his best,
when the
clearly his best
lineups
mate
get
at the club.
announced, I'm more looking for Mizian than I am for
Yes.
Emi, to be honest.
And that's purely based on the contribution that either of them have provided so far and what they can
Sexy
provide.
player though. Sexy player that you don't see very often nowadays.
It's up with his 3/4 lengths, but we move on.
Oh, aye, maybe no ways fucking long johns, but just the kind of player that you don't see nowadays. I was listening. I'm sure I was talking to you about it. I was listening to TalkSport the other week, and they were going, "Oh well, players like." Again, I'm going to say it and say, "Oh, no comparing them," but like players like Neymar, like you don't see players like that anymore, like who just want to have a bit of fun and fuck about, really, and then it's all like sports science and people being robots and that nowadays. It's boring. So it's nice when a player with a bit of flair comes along and struts his stuff.
Completely agree. So that brings us to a close on ranking our players this evening, Liam. So to summarise for the Ramblers, we've rated the season as a 3. We have felt that Wallacott, Fish, Triantis, Levitt, Amos, Tavares, Venti, Boyle, and Mayenda have all underachieved by what either we or they would expect to achieve this season. We feel that we feel that the players might think that Marshall, Hanlon, Bashiri, Stevenson, Marcondes, and Campbell have all had an average season, again by expectation. Lewis Miller, Joe Newell, Mariah Welsh, and Adam Lafondra can have an okay to good season or can't grumble with what they've contributed to an extent.
Yeah.
But players that could be proud of the contribution that they have made either for themselves or for the club would be Chris Cadden, Jordan Abita, Eli Yuan, and Mizian Malida.
Don't think I can argue with that, to be honest.
No, I don't. Well, I would hope not, because it was you that selected all the.
Yeah.
All of them.
We need to go through and do it all again.
So yeah, that brings us to a close. But it would be rude to not ask you what you're having for dinner, so I can make up to John for not asking the question first last week. But before I do that, Liam, I just want to give the rest of the Ramblers a heads up. We've got a couple of big episodes coming up soon. So look forward to them. I think we've maybe got 2 more in us, maybe even 3. I'm not sure before the season comes to an end. So, yeah, so we've got a couple of juicy big ones planned. So yeah, keep an eye out, get involved. They'll be fun, they'll be entertaining. None of them involve players, by the way, before you get ahead of yourself. But
yeah, I was thinking that there. I was thinking, what have I missed here?
Liam, what are you having for dinner before I let you go and scran
it? I'm having a pizza.
That is like a staple in the McLennan household for you.
Well, it's because it's a wee fella's birthday, and we're like, oh, we'll all just have a pizza. But it's fucking 9:05, and I'm starving, and I don't know. I'm a bit grumpy, to be honest, because I'm.
That's what you get for no sitting down until almost 7:30 to record, eh?
Well, you can blame my children for that, to be honest.
I am having beef and pork cheeseburger themed fries. Don't know what that's going to look like. Don't know how that's going to be.
Beef and
Looks
pork.
decent. Yep. It's basically
nice.
a shit ton of chopped up tomatoes with some meat drizzled over it with a shit ton of sausage and cheese. So I'm looking forward to it. But in anticipation of recording, I did scran a couple of Coronation chicken wraps before
Well, I
we got
actually
going.
had
So
a packet of cheese and onion crisps.
disgusting flavour. But hey,
Do you
I
not
can't
like
say
cheese and
so. I
onion?
just had a Coronation chicken wrap. Nope. No, I do
I
not.
like
It
a
would
cheese
not
and
be
onion.
it would not be my crisp of choice.
What's your crispy choice? I bet it's like a fucking
Sweet chili
Japanese.
sensations.
No, basically.
Sweet chili sensations or
Japanese
prawn
fucking
cocktail.
ramen flavour or something like that. Fucking Pokemon flavour.
I had mac and cheese flavored ramen the other week, and it was not great.
That
Do not
doesn't seem
recommend.
like it's a good
Nah,
combination.
it's not.
Mac and
It's
cheese
not.
like flavoured water. That's rank rotten. Like cheese flavoured water.
There's a brand that does like a shit ton of different flavors and stuff like that, and I saw that one, and there was like a carbonara one or whatever, and they were spicy as shit. But no,
I do
they were
like
not great
an
at all.
instant
But
noodle.
anyway, sorry, we're getting off topic here, aren't we? Slightly. But Liam, thank you very much for joining.
Thanks very much for having me on.
My days are always better when I get to see and listen to you.
You don't mean
So
that.
I'll let you go. Enjoy your evening. I hope the rest of the Ramblers have a good one as well. Stick in. Take care. Goodbye.
And here's hoping I win the league on Football Manager. Bye.
Let's get ready to rumble.